College is where people experience the most growth. You go from living with your parents, where everything was provided for you, to becoming the provider for yourself and anyone else that you decide to call your partner. My guest today, I met her during my last 2 years of college while working at the Eugene branch of the Qdoba Mexican Grill. It was located right on campus, which meant that we were open until 3 a.m. Thursday through Saturday, just to give those late nighters a place to eat. I met a lot of people during my time there, but the interactions were always too short, where they would just come in, get the food, eat, and then continue on with their night. There were those frequent customers, however, and for those frequent customers, I wanted to provide a higher level of customer service just by remembering their name and what they ordered last time, crack some jokes, and just treat them like a friend. My guest, Michelle Gilman, she was one of those frequent customers, and we never had a whole lot of opportunities to sit down and talk to each other and just get to know each other, but we knew of each other. So after college, her and I lost connection, but recently she added me on Facebook, and after catching me up on what she's been up to since, I knew I had to have her on. So this will be my 5th episode, and after each episode, I take notes on how I can be better for the next one. Prior to my interview with Brandon Shimada, I would write down all my questions and repeat them verbatim, and it gave interviews a whole lot of rigid edges, and that I wanted to make it smoother. So heading into that first recording with Brandon Shimada, I decided that I'm not going to write any questions. I'm just going to let them come based on his responses. While it did provide a little smoother flow with it, it left a whole lot of good follow-up questions unasked, and that's on me. So I am working to find the perfect medium, and I think I might have found it. So whether you are listening to this interview through Spotify or iTunes or watching on YouTube, I hope you enjoy my chat with Michelle Gilman, aka Micki XO. Okay, so before I had my interview with you, I worked out with my brother. We ran some stairs in the Portland area, which was fun and not fun at the same time. But, we're keeping ourselves blood flowing, exercises going. We talked yesterday about how you got more confident in your body. Can you kind of tell me about that moment where it just kind of clicked for you? You're like, oh, okay, I feel much better than I did, let's say, last year or just previous times.
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know if there was like a moment when it clicked. I guess there was. I was looking in the mirror at one point and I just realized I felt like my body felt the same, but I felt comfortable with it, if that makes sense. Like it was just a moment of sitting there and being like, I'm okay with this. It was really weird.
I think you said that you were starting to build up a routine for working out. Where did you discover this routine, and have you reached out to anyone that's kind of very exercise minded to kind of get some guidance, or how did you get your journey going?
Yeah, I did. So one of my friends actually lost 40 pounds in like 3 months, and I was just like, whoa. And I think that's when I was like, okay, I need to start like being healthy, because we were both kind of we were both about the same weight. And so I was just like, oh, okay, like someone's there with me. I'm not alone in this. And then all of a sudden she lost this weight, and I was like, okay, I need to get in shape now.
Yeah.
And so I actually reached out to her and I asked her, what did you do? Like, how did you get these results? And she said, well, I just realized I was overeating. And so I started keeping a food journal, and pairing that with some workouts. And she had bought this package. I can't remember the name of it, but it was a PDF, and it told you like all these different workouts. And she's like, I can like share it with you, and you can do these workouts with me. And I was like, yeah. And so that's kind of where my inspiration came from on that.
Yeah. So how is that accountability going with you two? Or is it still just you doing it by yourself and she's still doing it by herself, or you two working together on this?
She lives up in Northwest Portland, so we live pretty far away. I live in Milwaukee. And so unfortunately, we're not really able to work out together very often. But when we get together, we do talk about our workouts, and it kind of keeps me accountable that way. Um, I did slack off at first for sure. Like it was really hard to just jump into it. And there was a time where I think I went into it like full force for like 3 weeks. And then I like slowly kind of tapered off. And then I realized I was tapering off. And so it was kind of a struggle. And now it's pretty regular.
Yeah.
With the virus, it was hard because now I don't have the gym. decided to kind of make up for the gym and figure out how to do workouts at home that were still effective and that were still like in my muscle range without and then also keeping track of like not overeating. That was the big thing too, as I've realized food is the biggest part of weight loss. Like working out helps for sure, but like what you eat really determines what your goals are going to be and what, or not your goals, but what your results are going to be.
So what is your diet? Like, what are you doing to alter your eating habits?
So I keep a journal. I pretty much not restricting myself. And I think that's been the biggest thing is I tried like keto and I tried a couple other diets and I just felt so restricted that I eventually went back to my old habits. And so keeping a food journal is helping me to see exactly what I'm eating, how many calories are in it. And so then I can make a choice when I'm going to eat something like, okay, do I really want to spend the calories on this? Because I only get a certain amount a day. And sorry, what was the question again? I think I forgot the question.
How are you altering your eating habits? And you already answered that as far as like with the food journal, but what has been the most difficult part? Because obviously it's a little easier now that the world's still shut down, that you can't go out to these bakeries or whatnot. The temptation isn't as easily accessible. So how are you kind of preparing yourself for when that happens, the world opens up, to stick with the diet and could keep going with this trend?
I think the food part won't be as difficult because now that I have kind of a basic idea of how many calories are in food, I can kind of base my decisions off of that. I think the hardest part for me will be drinking again
Yeah.
because I stopped drinking for 2 months because I'm a social drinker. I drink with friends.
Sure.
I'm not a big like person that likes to drink alone. And so I haven't drank for like 2 months. And so I think that was a big part of my weight loss for sure. And so going back into the world and reminding myself like, okay, only have like one drink or like don't drink tonight, or finding a habit to replace that will definitely be the hardest.
Yeah. Uh, I could tell that there's the people going into this whole quarantine, there's like two roads that people can go on. They could either, be super healthy and, be very exercise minded outside the gym, or they can just sit inside and do nothing and just eat junk food all day. So I feel like those ones that are going towards the healthy side, they're also are reducing their alcohol intake. But when the world opens up, their tolerance is going to be shot down hard. So
Yeah.
it's going to be a lot of interesting moments for people when they get back into that whole swing of regular life.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, that and I think eating out will be a big one too. Because when we eat out, when I eat out, I bring it back home.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm able to kind of put it like half of it in a container, and
Oh,
it's easy for me to not like think about it. But when I go out to eat, I won't have that comfort of already being at home.
yeah.
So I'll have to very consciously be like, okay, only eat half of this. Like,
I love leftovers, so that sounds like a perfect plan to me.
yeah, I love leftovers too. It's great because I get 2 meals out of it now. So saving
Exactly.
money.
Exactly. Now, speaking about getting back to normal, you went to the beach yesterday around nighttime to do a photo shoot. Can you tell me how that went?
Yeah, so I have a friend that has a beach house out there, and they have like a private access to a certain part of the beach. So, because I was really worried about that when he was like, "Yeah, it's a beach shoot." I'm like, "I don't think we should be out there. Like, I think that's against the rules."
Yeah.
But yeah, and so it was very sectored off. There was nobody around. It was really nice. It was at night. We did light painting,
Hmm.
which is where you take, or I don't know if you know what light painting is, but
Explain for the crowd.
okay. So light painting is where you take lights and basically you set your exposure so that it takes a photo for like one single photo for, you can vary it, but usually around like 6 seconds or 8 seconds. And then you use light painting tools where you can have like tubes of light, kind of like Jedi type lightsaber looking things.
Nice,
And you
nice.
just like draw what you want to do. And then after it takes the photo, it keeps all of the light that you painted in there
Mhm.
so that it makes like a design with it. Um,
Yeah,
and it's
yeah.
fun modeling for it, but it's also difficult because you can't move a single muscle for like for almost like 30 seconds. So you have to,
Wow.
whatever pose you're holding, you have to hold it for 30 seconds. So you have to make sure it's something you can like hold.
Yeah,
Because if there's any movement, it creates a blur and then everything's out of focus.
yeah. Because I know, like, there are some photos I've seen where it's dark out, but have a slow shutter speed. So, and then people with like, let's say a light or something like that, they do like their names or something like that. So,
Yeah.
you can capture all that at once, which was pretty fun. And I think I tried that one time. It didn't go well, but
It's
excuse me.
hard. It takes a lot of practice.
Excuse me. Yeah, that was my first time, so it was, building blocks. Just keep going upwards.
Totally. Yeah, I'm learning how to do the photography side of it, but I would say the closest like for that I've seen to like explaining it is when people take sparklers and they kind of, like you said, write their name or write something out. But
Yeah. So can you kind of tell me about how your photography passion came about, and it was an option because I know you got a degree in advertising, I got a
yes.
degree in journalism, and photography is a part of the journalism field. So can you kind of tell me why you chose advertising instead of photography? But first, tell me about your photography origins.
So I've traveled a lot, and one of the biggest things that I did when I was traveling is taking photos because, and this is the honest truth, and I get a lot of weird reactions from this, but I have the worst memory in the world, and like smoke weed, which doesn't help it, but it was before I ever smoked anything. Ever since I was little, I've had a terrible memory, and so I started taking photos of my travels to remember certain key points, so that when I came back and talked about them, I could be like, oh yeah, this photo, I forgot about that memory, but here's what happened. And so I bought myself a camera that was pretty nice. I went and I explored, I took photos, and then realized I really liked taking photos. And so I learned a little bit more about it. I didn't get into it professionally until about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, when I was working for an advertising agency, and they saw my portfolio and they're like, we think you have a really good eye for photography. Would you be up for us like to train you on studio equipment? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. And so I started digging portraits for the ad company and doing all the portraits for them. And I still actually do that. Still with them. I go in every month and for like a day, and I photograph all the new employees and then edit them throughout the month. And it's been really fun. So they gave me my start by far. And then after that, I started working for a portrait studio for class portraits. So like all the like little kids and stuff that you see when they get their class pictures, I was the one taking those photos for them. And that was a crazy experience because I had to get up at like 4 or 5 a.m. some days and drive up to like North Vancouver or Salem and sit there and photograph people for like 5 hours. And we got like 1 minute per kid.
Oh,
So you have to get like a really clear photograph. And sometimes it's hard because a lot of kids, especially in lower income neighborhoods, don't like to smile. And so trying to get them to smile because, their parents want them to smile and they're the ones buying the photos. So you have to like really try hard to get them to smile. Some of them you just had to kind of give it to them after a while, where they were like, they refused to smile and they're like, okay, like you'll have to take it up with your parents. But
what was your tactic to making them smile?
oh man, so many things. I would tell really stupid jokes, which that didn't get as many results as I liked. But telling like dad jokes, I would try and like sometimes if they were really stubborn, I'd be like, okay, like I try and talk to them like, your parents really want this, like smile for your parents, or you tell a corny joke. It was kind of dependent on the kid. Some kids were very like, I'm not gonna smile, and there's nothing you can do about it. And with those kids, you just kind of have to like say, okay, I don't have time to like sit here and coach you, so you just take the photo.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing is there was always retakes. And so that was a helpful thing too, is like you come back for a retake day. So if they didn't get the best photo and their parents were upset, they could always do a retake day. And usually you have less kids to photograph those days. So then you can really spend time trying to get them to smile and really come out of their shell a little bit.
Yeah.
But it was
So,
hard. Yeah, you got like 1 minute for one kid to make their whole like memory of that year in their yearbook. So
now, did you at first? How was that kind of pressure? Because you went through. Obviously, we both gone through this growing up. The picture kind of sets the tone for how that year went. So, did that play a role in your head when you were trying to make sure the photo was well, or you just kind of like just get the photo and get out?
I that's a good question. I would say somewhere in the middle. I definitely wasn't like, let's get the photo and get out, because I did want them to have a really good memory, and I especially felt for their parents paying all this money because they were not cheap photos. And so, when their parents paying this much money, or if they've chosen a background that's like this whole thing, or they're getting retouching, you really want to make sure they're getting the best for their money.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's also some kids that just got it for the yearbook. Their parents were buying photos. And with those kids, I was like, okay, like you can kind of do your own thing because it really is their photo at that point.
Mm-hmm. You just kind of you built up from there. I mean, you got that portfolio now. You've had a couple advertising jobs. Now, can you kind of tell me about where advertising did come into play for you growing up?
For sure. Yeah, so advertising came into play for me way sooner before photography. I went to college and I was dead set on being an artist. I was like, I'm gonna be a painter. Like, no one's gonna tell me different. And my dad, who is a military guy who grew up he's very conservative, like military, like didn't come from a family with a lot of money, was like, absolutely not. You're going into business. And I was like, okay. And I took the math exam when I was doing my entrance exams, and they put me in algebra 2, and I was like, okay, because I've been in algebra 2 in high school twice because I had to repeat it because I'm
Mhm.
terrible at math. And so I was like, I'm going to test out of this. So I went to go test out of it, and I got the results back the next day, and they recommended that I be put in pre-algebra. And so I talked to my dad, and I was like, this isn't going to work. Like, I can't do math. It's a huge part of business. And so I took some economics classes. I tried to like get in the spirit. It was really bad. My
Mhm.
professor in economics, I think he passed me just because like I had like a 58%, and I think he curved me up and passed me because he saw how hard I was working, but I just wasn't getting it. And so we compromised, and I said I really want to do something creative. So I took an advertising class to kind of feel out the different places where I could see myself going, and I just fell in love with it. It was a perfect balance of the art that I really loved and also this kind of like psychology and strategy and like a meaning behind the art. And that really like inspired me. And so the next day signed up for a bunch of advertising classes and fell in love with it for sure.
Yeah. So your dad being military, can you kind of tell me about that kind of household? Because there is a stereotype that thrown out there that military kids are very strict, very disciplined. And can you tell me how was your household growing up, and how has that kind of structure helped get you where you are today?
Ooh. So my mom is very happy. She's very happy to like help me follow my dreams. She's very supportive. She's like my parents are basically polar opposites. Like she disciplined me for sure. Like it wasn't like she was let me do whatever I want, but she was a lot more open-minded about things, and she really supported things wholeheartedly, where my dad is very like, I don't want to say closed-minded, but I can't think of like the right word. Very like very traditional,
Sure. Yeah, that
where
works too.
he's like, okay, I see a path. This is the path you should take because I know it's a good one. And there might be other paths out there, but I don't know if it's a good one. So I think you should take this path. That's kind of how his brain worked. He was
Mhm.
very strict, very, very strict growing up. And I'm the baby of 5. And so,
5?
yeah.
What?
And so I think being the baby, I was even more like strictly upheld because I'm not the one that should be running out and like doing photo shoots or like acting crazy and drinking and all this kind of stuff. So it was a
Yeah.
very strict household. And I also went to a Catholic school, which my dad was very, very strongly for.
Okay.
And that also taught me a lot of discipline and being a little more strict on things, even though it definitely catered to my rebellious side because I rebelled pretty, not like anything crazy, but definitely rebelled a lot as a teenager and tried to fight like all the dress code rules and tried to like, I was there late, so I tried to always make excuses, things like that. But
Yeah, in my last interview for my last episode podcast, I talked with her name was Kirsten. So I talked with her. She said that she was the youngest sibling. So she became, you know, she kind of geared herself towards being on TV because she was the youngest sibling and kind of seeking attention.
yeah.
Now, are you still because sibling of 5? That's like 2 is common, 3, okay, 4, holy moly, 5. That's a lot. Like, how was the oldest? What are they doing? And then, are you still close to your siblings? And is it was it tough to be where you are as the youngest of 5? I know you said you were a little bit rebellious, but how were you, up here in the brain?
So it's kind of weird. So I'm my mom's only child. So 2 of my siblings are half siblings through my dad, and 2 are step siblings with my dad's current wife.
Mhm.
And the oldest is 11 years older than me, And so my two biological siblings are 11 and 8 years older than me. So they're about 3 years apart in age. Um, and my step siblings didn't come into the picture until about 15, maybe 15, 10, 15 years ago. About 10 years ago, I think.
Okay.
And so when I was growing up, it was definitely difficult because my siblings were so much older than me that when I was really little, they loved it. They were like, oh, we have like a baby doll basically to like play with, and they would show me to their friends. And like, but the older they got, the more they were like, okay, she's the baby. And so
Yeah.
I often got left out of things.
Oh.
And that was really hard. But I mean, now I understand because there was such an age gap. It was really hard to include the youngest sibling in all of it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it gave me you mentioned attention seeking, and that's definitely one of my things. I was like the class clown, always looking for attention. Like, I think that definitely comes from being the youngest for sure.
Yeah, because I'm the youngest, but there's just my brother and I, and I remember myself being the kind of the class clown, kind of the jokester, and then with when I decided I wanted to go into the journalism field, again more attention seeking. So
Yeah.
it just kind of worked out that way.
Yeah, it definitely get more attention seeking than doing photo shoots and music and putting yourself out there. So I was like, this makes sense to me.
I think the solidifying moment where like, okay, I could really, thirst for attention is when my podcast made it onto Spotify, and you're on Spotify as well. So it was just like, all right, I need to just gloat about this. I just need to tell everyone. I was like, yeah, that was like that when I was younger, but now I'm like, let's professionally gloat and professionally show it in people's faces.
Oh yeah, for sure. It took yeah, for sure. It takes a while to get from that like bragging to actually like professionally like announcing something versus like bragging about it. But yeah.
Yes, and luckily I also remember hearing in I want to say oh god, maybe it was a podcast where it had an actor that was really, I can't remember the name, but he talked about social media and how it's basically everyone's marketing billboard, and it's up to them how they want to display it. And that kind of stuck with me because it's like, yeah, I have no sponsors, I have no, I this is all me, so I got to advertise and push as hard as I can for myself, and which you are also doing with your musical stuff. So can you kind of tell me what was your early musical training, or your musical experiences, and how did you end up being Micki XO as we know you today?
So I have always loved singing since I was little. I didn't really do much professionally. I did write a couple of songs. I think there's a YouTube video of me somewhere singing one of them. It got maybe like 100 views, like nothing. But yeah, I just kept singing. I would sing in the car all the time, and my mom would always tell me like, "Oh, we should get you voice lessons." I was like, "Oh, I don't know, like maybe." And I think I was just so focused on all the dramas of being a young adult, not young adult yet, but like middle schooler and high schooler, that there was all these like, there's boys and school and so much going on that I felt like I couldn't really add to it. I did a lot of sports in high school. And so that was another thing, is I had most of my weekdays after school were filled with sports. So I didn't really have the time. It wasn't actually until I was able to drink, that I was of like drinking age, that I really started singing again, like outside of just my car. I started going to karaoke bars because I was like, oh, I think it'd be fun to like sing, and everybody's drunk there, so like there's not really a lot of pressure. And so I started going to karaoke bars. There's one in Oregon City called Tachos that I go to all the time. They have this thing called dollar margaritas on Thursdays, and so dollar margaritas and karaoke is a very good combo. And basically from there, I started meeting other people that sing, and some people would come in that were like professional singers, and so I just talked to them, and one of them introduced me to my producer, and that's how I met him. And yeah, from there we just started making music together, and it just kind of became its own thing, and I released it into the world recently and was very surprised, but very pleasantly surprised at all the positive feedback. And so it's just exciting to go and keep doing more.
There you go. Now that bar, are you going to go back for the margarita dollars or dollar margaritas?
I'm gonna wait a little bit, but yes. I want to wait like at least a couple weeks to see how things go over, and especially with all like the virus going on and everything. see how everything goes, and then maybe come back after that. I have no idea how soon they're going to bring back karaoke too, because I feel like with the mic, it's so close to your mouth. I mean, a lot of
Yeah.
people, they put it on their lips, and so it's concerning to me.
A little bit, yeah. This is my own mic, so if I wanted to do that, that's fine, obviously, because I'm the only one using it. But it's like it's a communal thing. It's like
Yeah,
unless they want to like spray it down and wipe it and get it clean in between each, you know, I guess performance,
yeah,
they
which is
could.
totally doable. It just takes a little while because I'm sure you know with a mic, it's like you can't just wipe it off like in one swipe and it's good to go. Like it takes a little bit of cleaning
Yeah,
in there.
yeah. And so, how are you feeling when it comes to this world starting to open up again?
I'm I have mixed feelings. I'm really careful when I hear an argument. I really want to hear both sides. And so I've been trying to set aside any kind of bias that I have and listen to people. I know, especially on Facebook, there's people from both sides everywhere. And I think they both have a lot of good points. And that's where the dilemma is for me, is knowing really who, not really knowing who, but knowing or trying to take those facts and then making my own opinion. I feel like I've been so busy, maybe I haven't had the proper time to sit down and really analyze really what I think about it. But in my perspective right now, I think it might be a little too soon. I think things do have to open back up. Like we can't stay locked up forever until we find a vaccine. But I think maybe it should open up a little slower. I will say though that I'm excited for things to open back up because I have been bored, so I understand. But I definitely see a second wave of the virus coming and things coming back down and then shutting back down and then opening up maybe again and hopefully not continuing the same wave. But yeah, so we'll see.
Yeah, that's how I've been taking it also, just because I have some downtime at work where I can read about it, but then I anytime I look at things outside of work on the work computer, I have that middle school mindset where I need to have a window open that actually shows that I'm doing work and then swap it over if like a coworker walks by. So never really fully read into it, but yeah, I'm optimistic that like, oh, things are getting back to normal. We can go back to like, going to bars or restaurants or whatnot. But then also it's like, yeah, maybe it's a little too soon, but it's all the news coming in. You just gotta kind of be your own judge of it.
For sure, yeah. Like I see a lot of things like beauty salons and nail salons where they can follow social distancing, so I don't think it would be too much of a problem. But then
Mm.
like bars, when I think of bars, I think of everybody crowding at the bar top, trying to
Yes.
order drinks. I don't see
Yes.
people like sitting down because I feel like that's a restaurant, it's not a bar.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm more concerned is like the bar area. Maybe restaurants. I think they've got a lot of rules in place where they're going to be okay. But yeah, bar tops are terrifying to me right now. Never thought I would say that.
That sounds about right. Even because you and I met in college, and there were some pretty famous college bars in the Eugene area. So I kind of think about that. I know one of them shut down permanently, which mixed results. I laughed a little bit when Taylor's was officially announced shut down. I was just like,
Yeah.
sounds about right. But yeah, I just think about those times where everyone's crowded at the bar or in the dance floor and whatnot, and it's like, ooh, that one's going to be a little tough sell for people to get back to. Just
Yeah,
a little bit.
that's the one that I'm like a little skeptical about. Everything else I think, I mean, I'm sure there will be some people that don't follow it, but I think for the most part people are going to be really careful to do their part,
Yeah. So,
especially on
but
the business side.
oh yeah, especially that line of business, customer service line. That's always a little bit tougher on them. So I know a few people are in that line of work, so it's kind of thinking about them. But they're making do with what they got.
Yeah.
So let's go back to you again. This is a podcast about you. Um, so I think before we went off that tangent, we talked about your music. You got a producer. You released your first song called "Why Did I Stay." Can you kind of tell me the inspiration behind it?
Yeah, so it's a little hard for me to talk about, but I went through a toxic relationship for about a year and a half, somewhere in there. And I kind of I it was about a year or a year and a half after everything had happened that I was watching this documentary. I worked at Nike and they had a screening of this documentary called I think it's Minding the Gap, Mind the Gap or Minding the Gap. Um, And we were just told, oh, or at least I was just told, it's a video about skateboarding or a documentary about skateboarding. And I was like, cool, like gets us out of work for a little bit. Like might as well go check it out and see what's going on. And they had the director come in and like do a Q&A and everything. So it sounded cool. And I went and I watched it, and it turns out the documentary actually is a lot about like domestic violence and abuse, and whether it's from like parents or whether it's from a spouse or a lover, anything like that. And it really it shocked me because I hadn't, I kind of put everything that I had gone through in a box at this point and like sealed it away, and which is really unhealthy, but I don't recommend it. But that's just kind of how I operate. And so this video or this documentary just kind of made all these emotions come back out. And there was this one line where the documentarian, right?
The documentary host, or like the guy curating it?
The guy making the documentary.
Okay,
he asked one of the women on there, he said, well, this is wrong. And she said, yeah. And he goes, well, why do you stay? And that just really I was like, shit, why do I stay? Like, why did I go through that? Why did I put myself through that when I could have walked away? And I went into a bathroom. After the movie, I went to the bathroom and I sat there on the toilet, and for like 10 minutes, I wrote this song out in notes on my phone, and then came back out and I was fine. But it was just like, it really hit me. And I think it was a big part of the questions I even had to ask myself. Was like, why did you stay in that situation? My dad asked me something similar too, in a much nicer way, I would say. He's strict, but he's nice. And so, yeah, that was the inspiration behind that. And as I kind of started looking into myself and thinking about those moments and thinking about that dark past, I actually ended up connecting with other women that had gone through, honestly, similar or worse situations than I had. And it really put a lot more in perspective. And so they were an inspiration in that song as well, hearing their stories and what they went through. And I think a big thing too is I'd never heard music that related to that. I'd heard, I think, maybe not never, there's a song, Rihanna and Eminem called Love the Way You Lie. And I think that song definitely hit me hard. And I just felt like there wasn't a lot of talk about this kind of stuff, especially in the music industry. And so I wanted to kind of make a song that would bring it more to the forefront.
Yeah, no, definitely. And there are moments that I can recall in my brain, that there was domestic violence in musical industries. The Chris Brown, Rihanna, I think is probably the more prominent example. So, that song you mentioned, the Love the Way You Lie, it's, it has, it's kind of a hard balance because the instruments and, the background music and maybe sometimes the way the lyrics flow can kind of get the message a little too underlaying, because you can get too caught up like, oh, this song sounds great, Eminem's rapping like a rap god, I guess, because that's one of his songs. So and then you just kind of it's not until you like look at the lyrics and really digest, like, this is about domestic violence and a toxic relationship, and it just says, even the title Love the Way You Lie, it could be connotation towards, maybe she lies, maybe he lies, but they both love that they're lying to each other. So can you tell me about the recording of that song? How did that go, and how was that process? Because this is your first song. What was some of the kind of stumbles in this process?
So this actually started out as a hip hop song, which is really crazy because it's not how it ended up at all.
It did have a little bit of that beat to it when I listened to it.
Yeah, it started, I got like a free beat, like a free hip hop beat, because hip hop is my favorite type of music. And so I was like, oh, like I'll naturally just make like the kind of music I listen to. And it became almost like a song over a hip hop track. So it was definitely mismatched. And when I started working with my producer, he was like, well, what if we add like some guitar in it? And at first I was like, oh, I don't know, like I'm not I'm not super into like rock, and so I'm not, I can listen to it for sure, but it's not like my drug of choice music wise.
Yeah.
And so he was like, why don't we put some guitar in it? And I was like, okay. And so at first I was like, I don't know if I like this guitar. And it's funny because it's like the most like probably iconic beat of that song is that guitar riff, and now I love it. But it was hard for me to want to change anything. And I've noticed with music, like when I start, we have something and it's great and I really like it, and then we'll change it. And at first I'm like, I don't know, like this isn't what I was envisioning, but it always ends up so much better. And my producer Matt has been in the music business for 10 years. He's a manager at a recording studio, and then he does his own stuff on the side. And he's just genius. Guy is talented beyond his knowledge. He's really good.
Yeah.
And so yeah, we just kind of sat down, we pieced little things together, and we kind of took it step by step, and we said, okay, this part sounds a little empty. What can we do to fill the space, enhance the music? We made sure that the vocals were turned up so that people could hear the lyrics, because that was a really important thing for me. And another really important thing that I think we really did well on is I really wanted it to be a song of like power and strength. I felt like a lot of the music that I had heard that dealt with domestic violence and these kind of issues was like not victim-y, but it had kind of either a sad tone to it or like a hurt tone. And I really wanted to show that you can rise from the rubble. Like this is your anthem, you know, if you're in a situation, this is like your call to get out. So, and like question things. Why are you in here? Why are you staying? So it was a message I wish I had gotten at the time. Yeah.
Other than that, is that the only other person helping you with your musical career? And how are you adapting with building this kind of image of yourself?
Kind of. I would say there's people helping out with little bits and pieces here. When it comes to the actual music, it's just my producer and I. For that song, I have about 3 in the works now. One is finished and it's going to come out in about a month. One is, or 2 are about half done. And for 2 of those 3 songs that are coming out, one I worked with a DJ, and we had his beat. He created this really cool beat, and I asked if I could sing on it, so we brought him in, so it was the 3 of us working on it. And then the one, that song was called Blue Meets Blue. It's coming out in like a month. And then another song I have called Silence, which also talks about domestic violence and kind of that situation, is I met somebody at Tacho's again. I don't know how everybody's coming to Tacho's, but I met this guy at Tacho's, and
You're giving them the plug.
Huh?
You're giving them the plug.
I'm trying. Yeah, I'm trying. Everybody, tachos, dollar margaritas. But this guy, his name is Jeeves, and he plays guitar really well. And so we decided to collaborate on the song Silence. And I was like, I think I have like lyrics. I have lyrics written. I don't really know what a melody would be. And so we sat down for like a month or so. We'd meet every week. And he created the guitar melody that's behind it. And then we took it to my producer and recorded it, and then put piano over it and like all these other layers on it. And so it's so cool. I can't wait to release it. But yeah, so I've had help for sure in different areas. Also, I did, for the Why Did I Stay, I did my own photography for the album cover, but my friend did my makeup, and then I had a friend edit the photo for me, and then I have a photographer that I work with that's doing the cover for I Can't Breathe, which is coming out some point.
at some point down the road.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was about to ask you. You told me that you took the photo for your cover for the song you just released, the Why Did I Stay, and I remember mentioning to you, it's very like Lady Gaga-esque, like early day. Now, I know you like pop culture. What other kind of pop artists did you draw inspiration from to kind of form your own image, and how do you feel image is portrayed right now?
Definitely Halsey. Halsey is one of my all-time favorite singers. I think I've never felt like a connection with the singer that I've never met that strongly, if that makes any sense. Like, I used to say all the time, I was like, I feel like if some things had gone differently in my life, or like if I'd been born in like a bigger city, that I would be Halsey, if that makes sense. Like, we're just very similar people, which is weird to say because I've never met her. I don't know her at all. But like, just the way she handles things, the way she writes her music, the way she kind of has this poetic atmosphere and like tells a story with every song. I feel is really similar to my music. She and I both suffer from bipolar disorder, and so that was a big thing too, because it's difficult to get a lot of things done with it. And so, yeah, just taking a lot of inspiration from that. We both have had really horrible past relationships that we've drawn on, and actually the album cover for Why Did I Stay is very heavily referenced to Halsey. Her newest album, I think it's Manic, has a photo of her like face with a glitter bruise over her eye, and hers is just straight blue, but it was definitely a big reference to that, and just her musical inspiration. I would also say more recently I've really started getting into like Dua Lipa, and I think she has like a lower voice like I do, And so being able to kind of have somebody that has that lower voice is really inspiring and powerful for me, because a lot of female singers I think have super high voices, or like you hear like Ariana Grande and Mariah Carey who can go up really high.
Yep, they can
But
break.
you don't hear a lot of women that go down like a little bit lower. So I think that was really interesting for me.
Yeah, Ariana Grande, they can break some glass with how high their voice can get.
Yeah, it's crazy. I
Ooh,
aspire to one day be able to do that.
fingers crossed. Yeah. So I mentioned earlier that you did get an advertising degree. How much of that degree is coming into play when it comes to promoting yourself and your music?
It's funny because I just like a year ago was like, I have this advertising degree and I ended up in graphic design, and I feel like I didn't use my degree at all. Even though I did learn graphic design at U of O, but a lot of it I taught myself in order to make my ideas as an art director in advertising come to life. I would say it's played a lot. I'm finally kind of getting use out of my degree
Right? It's a
by
good
being able
feeling.
to use it for advertising my music. But yeah, kind of coming up with a strategy, looking at content. I'm researching a lot of marketing and like numbers side of things, which is not what I was doing at school. So learning that has been a challenge, because again, me and math and numbers is not super compatible.
Which you and I
But
have that in common, by the way. So
I think it's like the artist curse.
I think so too. Yeah, because going back to what you said earlier, like economics, I struggled mightily, but the teacher did notice that I'm trying to figure it out, but he still didn't like totally fail me. Just got me above like failing. Like, sweet, bro. Thank you.
Yeah, I was like, I'll take it, man. I just want to pass. Like,
Yeah, it's such a great feeling to finally use our degrees. I'm finally using the journalism one to tell your story and tell other people's stories, and I'm very happy to be here talking with you, just because we've had short experiences with each other where we just talk to each other for like 5 or 10 minutes, just because maybe you're on your way to finishing out your night somewhere else and I'm still working. But we developed that connection. You followed me on Facebook again, and so it's like, and when you told me about what you're doing for work now. Obviously, I think you're still working, even though I'm not sure if your office is shut down or not. But I looked into your LinkedIn career because best way to do research. You've held a few prominent advertising jobs. So I know your first one, which was still associated to your degree leaving college, was a production designer with iClick. Now I
yeah.
remember iClick being used in school a lot. So can you kind of tell me about what that experience was like? Was it just like, oh, this is awesome, I could use my degree, or you're just like, oh, this is a flood of knowledge I'm trying to swim through?
So it's funny you mentioned that we used iClick at school, because when I went in for the interview, I totally thought that's what the company was those little like remote things.
Yeah.
And it's not at all. It's a whole different company.
I'm
But
embarrassed.
no, it's all good. I thought the same thing. It's a pretty small company, I think, and so they get confused with that one a lot. Um, they do a lot of like promotional items. So basically, they take a company like Cadillac will come in and be like, "Hey, we're going to this like brand thing where we'll have a little tent, and we need some items to like pass out with our stuff on it." So like we did like pop sockets and like fidget spinners. Fidget spinners were like the big thing at the time,
Oh god, they were so
and
huge.
yeah. But yeah, like pop sockets, fidget spinners. We did oh man, like key rings, those little like things you put on the back of your phone with like the ring,
Oh yeah, I have
stuff
one of
like
those.
that.
I have one of those.
And largely it was just taking people's logos and resizing it, or creating like vector art and putting it on the promotional items, and then we'd ship it off to them. And sounds really easy, but it was a lot of Illustrator knowledge, which I was a little, I don't know, I taught myself, so I knew it, but I wasn't like super like well versed in it. But I went for it anyways, and a lot of it too was, it was really simple, but you had to do a lot of quantity per day. You had to meet like a certain quota of how many items you were doing. You had to make sure all the orders were filled, and we get a lot of orders, and I think there's about 8 of us on the design team. And yeah, it was really fun. We had orders overseas, we had orders like domestic, and the team was all really great. I really loved working there. Everybody from my boss to the whole team, the design team to the sales team, people were just really like accommodating. They were super words. I'm so nervous. They were really accommodating. They were really excited to help you and help you learn new things. And it was cool because I moved to Seattle for the job. So
Oh.
I kind of uprooted my whole life and moved up there. And it was great. I still one of my best friends in the whole world. She is from my job at iClick. I met her there. And
Hey.
crazy story. She's 4'9". She's 4'9". She's really she's tiny, but she's like the most little like spitfire. Like I love her. She's great.
No, yeah, you uprooted your whole life. How was that process? And did I assume they helped with the moving cost as well, since it is for your job
A
or for the
little
job?
bit. I was very entry level. It was my first job outside of like restaurant work, and so it was challenging, mostly because the rate of living in Seattle is a lot higher than in Portland.
Hmm.
And so I was making like about $20 an hour, and at the time that was like paycheck to paycheck for me.
Hmm.
I did have my own apartment, which was awesome. I lived about 10 minutes from work. Um, and yeah, commuted. It was pretty easy. I commuted back to Portland a lot just because I didn't really have any friends there at the time. I just moved there. That was probably the hardest part, was not knowing anybody, but I kind of threw myself into work and looking at side jobs, and I did some photography when I was up there. Um, and yeah, just kind of, it was nice. It was a good kind of feeling of being like, okay, I am self-sufficient. I can take care of myself if I need to. I can move to Seattle. I don't have to stay in one place. And I did move there for the job because it was my first job, and I was like, oh yeah, they're into me. I'm done, sold. I'll go. Like,
Name your price and I'm there.
yeah, pretty much. I was like, just make sure I can like live, and we're good.
So, you know, I've been taking notes, trying to be better about my interviewing. Um, you with your song "Why Did I Stay," toxic relationship, and then you know, military home, and then moving. Have you the thought of seeking help, or where do you go to kind of get things off your mind, just kind of vent? Because I went to a therapist, open about that, where I had to deal with a kind of toxic relationship myself. So it helped me kind of grow in becoming more clear-minded. Now with music and moving and you know what you're doing now, how are you keeping your mind clear and focused going you know which each step in each stage of your life?
Exercise has been a huge part of that. I think definitely helping. I feel a lot less irritable, and I feel a lot less like I have more energy. I feel like when I exercise too, which is
Mhm.
funny because you'd think if you're expending energy, you're gonna have less, but I always feel like I have more. That's been a big part of it. Counseling for me has been a rocky road just because it's difficult for me to make an appointment and then actually go in and then feel like I can tell them everything that I've been feeling for like the last 2 weeks. Because in the time, usually by then, whatever's happened, I'm like, I'm over it, or I've moved on, or there's a different problem. And so by the time I get in there, it's hard for me to really express how I was feeling at the time, or it's hard for me to really go back and look on that. And I think part of it is my like terrible memory. But um, I found I used an app, and we'll plug here, BetterHelp, loved it. But there's an app, and basically what you can do is you can text or message your counselor at any time, and then they'll respond within 24 hours with like advice or suggestions. And then you can do on the phone. Um, you can schedule to do it on the phone as well to talk about like bigger issues. And that was so helpful for me because like in the moment, you know, I'm feeling like anger, I'm feeling sadness, and I can just sit there and I can just write to them everything I'm feeling, and I don't feel like I'm being a burden like I would be if I was talking to friends, or feeling like I have to censor certain parts of things or censor myself in any way. I can just be open and honest, and I think that's a huge thing. So definitely exercise therapy, totally recommend it. Um, yeah, and then channeling things into music as well. I like to it's strange, but when I think, I don't like when I go to like I can't journal. It's really hard for me. I feel like if I journal, I get more depressed because I think about it more. But if I write it in a poem, like not like like a standard poem, but if I just write it down in like a poetry format, and I like make things rhyme, something about that helps me more than it does to journal. And I think it's like I feel like I'm being more productive with my like pain or anger that way than if I were to just sit down and journal, because then I just have a page of thoughts and it's like, well, I don't want to read it because I don't want to feel that way again. But
Yeah.
if I have like a poetry format to it, I'm like, oh, okay, well, I can make this into a song or a poem, and then I'm more apt to go back and really analyze what I was thinking that way.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And At first it was hard for me to truly open up because I saw myself as an open guy. I could talk about anything. And when I finally sat down with him, I saw myself like, oh, I'm having a hard time putting the words are there, but I'm having a hard time putting the words from my brain through the mouth because you don't know. But the therapist said the best thing was he's unbiased. He doesn't know me. He just wants to listen. So that was the biggest thing for me in personal growth. I was like, oh, okay, I feel good. And then, yeah, balancing it with workout. And I did sports in high school. So I did have that mentality of like, just grind it out. But, it's nowadays it's okay to talk to people. And the Better Health actually is a podcast I love listening to. He plugs that all the time. So it's like, oh, perfect. All right.
It's great. I was skeptical at first, like it's not like the cheapest for sure. So I was like, oh, I don't know. And it's like I'll try it they gave like a week trial. I was like, I'll try it for a week, we'll see how it goes. And it went really well. And so I think it's worth the money for sure.
There you go.
I also will say that growing up with my dad being very military and very conservative, and he's a lot older, he's 70.
Hmm.
And so I think that was a big struggle too, was he didn't really accept that I had any kind of like thing wrong with me for the longest time. He's like, oh, you're just feeling sad. And I'm like, no, it's more, no, you're just feeling sad. It was like this whole topic for a long time. It wasn't until I was in college that he finally was like, okay, maybe this is a thing. And like, I actually had to take him with me to a counselor to have the counselor explain like what was happening. But now ever since he's been very supportive, very like open about it. He's, I think, just that's like his generation kind of thing,
Yeah.
especially in the military. They're like, oh, something's wrong. And they're like, no, just walk it off. Like, it's fine. And
Yeah.
so that was a challenge for sure, mentally, just kind of going through that and feeling like, okay, like, I think this is like really something valid that we should be concerned about. And he just, no, it's good. But my mom has always been very supportive. And so that's really helped me a lot, is having my mom to go to when maybe my dad's not really understanding it yet.
Yeah, and growing up, I had that same kind of household where if we had any mental issues, like we didn't bring it up at all. We just kind of shrugged it and kind of dusted underneath the rug. But I remember my brother, he went to see a therapist, and then it was just a one-time experience because he didn't really like it. And then I even had a hard time opening up with my family about that. But once I told them, they're like, "Are you feeling better?" I was like, yeah, I feel really good. So it's very underrated, but also I feel like it should be appreciated more. The whole aspect of having someone to talk to,
Oh,
because
for sure.
friends, they're biased, and unfortunately, you love them to death, but it's like I need a very straight answer.
Yeah, they're always going to try and like be on your side a little bit, and so you can't quite get the real unbiased truth.
Yeah, and you love them to death again, but it's like, no, tell me I screwed up. Please tell me it's okay. So what how are you still using the Better Health app or talking to friends, or how are you with balancing this life of building a music career and keeping your advertising career going? And those are two huge scales to work with. How have you been balancing that out?
Um, I would say balancing well, but having like zero time outside of it. It's been kind of helpful with quarantine because when I'm not going out and seeing friends and hanging out, so I have a lot more time. Um, that's been a huge help. I would say right now my career is a lot more photography than advertising, and I do a lot of graphic design as well. Ironically, I am working on an ad, but I'm just designing the ad. Um, but yeah, I'd say it gets difficult for sure. But I think if you really have a passion and you really want something to work, you're going to go for it and you're going to put your energy into it and you're going to find time in your day to make sure that it happens. And so that's kind of where I've been at. Like on my lunch breaks, I'll look up like marketing stuff for music, or I'll look into different like apps or like different PR companies, things like that. And then when I get home, I try to make sure I at least have an hour every day to myself so that I'm not overworking myself and getting burnt out. So a little bit lately, it's been more than an hour, which has been kind of nice, but I need
That's
to get back into the grind.
that's okay. That's all right. That's what, you get like, let's say you were working and you're going into the office, you got at least like 5 hours or so until you think about going to bed. You're good to spend a little extra time to yourself.
Yeah, for sure. And I think too, I always make sure, especially like dinner is kind of like my comfort thing. That's like how I like, not that I skip dinner. I want to make sure I'm clear on that. I eat dinner every night, but it is kind of like my me time when I have my dinner. I'll usually put something on TV and give myself a nice like hour to eat and to like play on my phone and do that kind of stuff. And then I'll either go back to looking at music stuff, or maybe I'll stay and do a little more relaxing, or I'll go and work on a project that I was putting off for work. Because now that I'm working from home, I do have the flexibility of like, oh, if I want to take a couple hours to do something for my music, I can come back and just work a couple hours later and still get everything done. And yeah, working from home has been the biggest like asset I think to all of this, because having a desktop and a like office setup at home has been made me so much more productive with music, like through the roof.
I thought about that too, because with I am the fancy title of office coordinator, which means I'm just the receptionist. But I always thought if I had the ability to work from home, it would be like 40% actually working, and then the other 60 would be like podcasting, figuring out how to like make this better and all that. So I figured, my office has been open, so I've been in there, since the coronavirus started. So I'm like 100%. Okay, all right, let me change that back. I'm like 80% work, 20% everything else at work. So currently you are a production photographer for Hog Wild Toys. Can you tell me what some challenges are with taking photos of products? And did you imagine this happening for yourself, where you get to work with toys all day?
I definitely never imagined this happening to myself. It's funny because I'm not against kids, but I'm not a big kid person. Um, so working for a toy company is very ironic that I'm working with kids a lot, and especially with lifestyle photography, where we have like I'm taking photos of kids playing with the toys and things like that for like packaging and promotional. And um, it's really fun though. I've actually found that I like kids a little bit more from working from this job. I'm getting used to them, but it's great. I didn't see this coming at all. Like I said, I was working for the photography company doing class portraits, and I got an offer, and I love the photography part of it, but I hated the early hours. I'm not a morning person, so I hated the early hours. And then working with kids all day, every day was a lot, because like I said, I'm not a big kid person. So like it was just a lot at once. So I was kind of looking for something when when the photography wrapped up. And so I went in for, initially it was a packaging design interview. And I walked in and I almost didn't go, is the crazy part. Because I was like, I had no packaging design experience. And I was like, I don't think I'm going to get it. So I was just like, I'm not going to go. And then I got to the building and I debated on going home or not. And I was like, no, I'll just go. It's good experience. Like, if nothing else, I'll have um, more interview practice. And so I went in, and some of the first words they said is they're like, okay, so we know that we called you in for a packaging design, but we actually are really interested in your photography. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so glad I went. Like, yeah. And so, yeah, we talked a little bit about it. It was originally supposed to be a 3-month contract where I would take all of the photos for their Amazon campaign. And they ended up loving me so much that they were like, oh, you can do graphic design too? And I was like, yeah. And they're like, well, we were looking for a designer. And I was like, well, cool. And ended up slowly, after about 3 to 4 months, becoming full-time. Got hired on, got benefits, which was the most amazing thing in the world. I've never had that before. So that was awesome.
It's so great.
Yeah. And I just turned 26. So like my benefits had just run out, and I was
Yeah.
like, oh crap. And so it was perfect timing. Yeah, it's been a dream. I've learned so much already. Like, I was a little worried because I was like, I've only really done portraits before. But I picked it up pretty quick. I just had to Google and research a lot every time I got stuck. And I was like, I can't, like, the biggest thing was getting the glare off of plastic.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
there's a lot of stuff where we have plastic that's like warped in a bunch of really crazy ways. And we had to get it where there was no glare on it. And that was a challenge. I remember we have like a line of products like that, and they're our most popular product. And it took me about 3 days to figure it out. And just in case anybody needs to know, what you do is you backlight it and then you put white foam boards in front so that the light reflects off and it creates a softer light. Because I was using like diffusers. I had 3 diffusers on one light and it still was giving me a glare. And I was like, this is impossible. Like, what is happening? And I got so frustrated. 3 days later, that I figured it out. And yeah, and so I've just been growing a lot, just little things like that, like figuring out how to get glare off of things. I've gotten way better at my Photoshop game
There you
because
go.
I've found that I can get most of the glare off of things, but there's some things I cannot get like 100% off. So I've gotten really better at Photoshopping things, and yeah, it's been awesome. I really love it.
So the figuring out how to get rid of the glare, was that just trial and error? Did you research into that, or did someone just tell you about it?
Both. I spent like 3 days doing research on it, and then I would find a technique and I would try to like mimic it, and then it wouldn't work, and I would try and like finagle it. And I'm like, well, maybe I'll do this, and it still didn't work. And so I was like, okay. So then I would go and find more techniques, and like there was so many techniques out there that it took a while to find the right one. But I finally found it, and when I found it, it was just like I think I like cried tears of joy. It was so great. I was like, oh my gosh. I was like getting worried I wouldn't be able to do it. And I was like, oh man, like I'm just starting here. I have to be able to like show these people I can work here.
Yeah,
So
it's like I can show them I can actually have the knowledge to figure out this issue in a short amount of time and then apply it very quickly. Like,
yeah.
oh, yeah, I know. Like, I get asked to do some things at work as far as, can you move this this Word document into Excel? It's something super simple, but I didn't know. So I did research myself and then I figured it out. I showed, the person who asked me to do this, and I just threw my hands up in the air. And I was just like, I did it. I feel great. What's the next challenge?
Yeah, that's just what you said. What's the next challenge? That's what I love about photography, and like especially product photography. It's really nice because your subjects don't move and you can manipulate them, and it's like you have a lot more control over everything. And I really like that about the product photography versus like portrait photography. Um, there's different challenges for sure, and there's a lot more like challenges that come with product photography. When I was researching it, I found an article that said product photography is the hardest form of photography, doing like the white background on things to make it still look interesting and to get like little things like color grading, getting glare off. It does take a lot of editing to be able to like a lot of masks and layers, a lot of exposures, going through, and just every product's different too. It's the thing is some have more shine on them, some don't have shine on them, some have like cracks in them that I have to Photoshop out, just things like that. But every challenge has made me grow so much that I really love it, and I think it's made me thrive even harder. So
There you go. There you go. So my last question for you is, we did talk about how the world is opening back up again, and you are on the fence about it. How are you preparing yourself both within your advertising career and both in your musical career as Micki XO? Uh, how are you preparing yourself to hit the ground running as soon as the world opens up officially?
I have to say, so a lot of the things I do besides going to bars and stuff, are pretty at home. So I'm not changing a whole lot. I'm a very low maintenance person. I don't get my nails done. I barely get a haircut. I think I get a haircut like every 2 years. Um, and I mean, really I wear makeup, but all that can be ordered online. So not a whole lot really changed for me, to be completely honest. Like really the only thing that changed is I'm working at home now versus at the office. And
Yeah.
I've been loving that. So I feel like it's weird to say like I've enjoyed quarantine, especially because so many people have suffered through it that I can't really say it that way, but like it's hasn't changed a whole lot for me. Like it's just kind of um yeah, just location swap really. So I think opening back up, it won't be super different. It'll be nice to be able to see my friends again. That's going to be the biggest thing. To be able to see people in person. Going to bars, being able to sing karaoke will be great. That's what I'm most excited for, I think. Um, yeah, I don't think too much will change though. I think, at least in my life. It will be really nice, I think, for my friends though. A lot of my friends lost their jobs, or they were in the service industry and they were having a hard time. And so I'm really excited. I think that's the biggest thing for me is that I'm excited for them because I know how much they need that. And yeah, my life though, it's probably not going to change. Probably still going to be at home a lot, researching music, and it will be fun to go on photo shoots again. That will be really fun, and
Yeah.
not having to do the 6 feet apart. That will be, well, doing 6 feet apart, but not having to like when it's open back up, not
Sure.
having to do that in like the distant future.
Yeah, just human interaction is the biggest thing I'm hearing and personally feeling that I'm excited for again. And I live with my brother, so I can drape over him like a towel or something like that, just hug him like crazy. So I'm still getting that in, but hugging other people and my friends, I'm a big hugger. So that's
Me
the one
too,
thing.
yeah.
Look at that. We both are huggers and we both struggled in economics. We're gonna make it in this world.
Yes, we will.
Michelle, thank you so much for stopping by and chatting with me. And it's great to catch up with you again. We didn't have any interactions in college, but we're gonna change that now. We're gonna text each other. And look at that. We're gonna make it, guys.
Woo! Thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah. Do you have any follow-up questions for the guest? Put them in the comments below, and I will work to get them answered for you. For more content from KC Media, please follow us on Instagram and Facebook. And for more interviews from Keoni Chats, please follow us on Spotify, iTunes, and YouTube. Until then, guys, see you then. Now, I couldn't go through this whole episode without talking about George Floyd and what's going on in Minneapolis right now. Unfortunately, I'm one of those parties that has not seen the video, the first released one where you just see the two officers. I did hear about a second video that was released showing 3 more officers. I have been keeping up with it through CNN and other major news sites, but not even speaking as a person of color, just speaking as a person in general. That was their moral compass was very skewed because that was too much. That was way too much, and now for that to come at all during the world trying to recover from the coronavirus, and now with people dealing with what's going on at the White House. I'm not a political person, but I am a person that cares. And if you are someone that feels anything I'm feeling, sadness, fear, confusion, and just anger, I implore you that you should talk to someone, whether it's a loved one, whether it's your friend, best friend, brother, sister, whatever it is, partner. Just talk to them. Express how you feel in a peaceful way. Because I've seen some protests. I have gone through some protests, like during the Trump election protest. I was living in Portland. I was working downtown. The worst part for me was just trying to travel through and not know if I'm going to make it home, or just not knowing the uncertainty of it all. Now, I am all for people that want to express themselves in that manner. Just because it's your body, it's your mind, it's your actions. But just speaking as myself, I don't want to be a part of that, and then something turns south, and then next I'm not going to see tomorrow. So I hope this doesn't turn people off from my show, but I just had to say something, and I just had people know that this are very trying times, just like the trying times we've been going through the last 3 months, but just at a different level. We gotta keep pushing. We gotta keep working for equality and justice for everyone. I worked at Nike during their equality shirt campaign for Black History Month, just to signify that they want equality all across the board for everyone. And I take that to heart, because I'm not a political person, not someone that can just jump into the legal system and fix it. I'm just someone that cares, someone that wants people to be treated equally, and just keep the heads up, keep pushing through, talk to whoever you need to talk to, lean on whoever you need to lean to, because you shouldn't be doing this alone, and you shouldn't be carrying all that baggage. I've done that before, and it turned me into a different person. And you gotta stay true to yourself, because if you start twisting yourself because you're holding all of it in, it's not healthy for you, not healthy for your loved ones. So just keep pushing. We'll find a better tomorrow.